breaking and entering, drunk and disorderly, law and order. A former prosecutor and a defence lawyer, not your typical pairing. And the result? Conversations about crime and punishment that are guaranteed to get you thinking.
Welcome to Justice Matters, a weekly podcast with Lizzie Green and Joe Crowley. Our episodes are available every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Justice Matters Pod for clips. Enjoy the episode. This episode contains descriptions of murder and rape. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Lizzie.
Hello, Joe.
Welcome to our new studio.
New studio.
I know, new sound equipment and everything.
I know it might sound a little different.
Okay. Not to us, hopefully.
Hopefully not to us, but for the next couple of weeks, we're still working on a total refit for our recording, but new perspective.
That's right, but we're dedicated to our listeners, so we always pump out an episode once a week.
That's right. We don't want to leave anybody in the lurch.
Yeah. So today I wanted to talk about the Peter Falconio murder. So he was the victim, never been found.
No.
And Bradley John Murdoch was convicted of his murder. And the name's probably familiar to everyone. I'll go through the facts in a second. I mean, it's a case that has been talked about in defence circles because, I think there's some people who think that Bradley John Murdoch is innocent.
Really?
And the conviction against him had some question marks over it. We'll go through, hopefully.
So let me just check. Yeah. Was this Northern Territory?
Northern Territory, correct, yeah. So basically in the middle of nowhere. I mean, if you had to sort of point to a map of Australia and you got it somewhere around or just north of the middle of the continent, is where Peter Falconio went missing, never been seen again.
So this was a no-body
case? Yeah, a no-body case. And we've talked on this podcast about the difficulties of those in terms of prosecuting them. But it's an old case now. I mean, it doesn't feel old because, I don't know, I suppose I'm just old. 14 July 2001.
See, that is a long time ago, but I remember it.
Yeah.
Well,
it really made world media because Peter Falconio was a British backpacker.
That's right.
And so it had certainly was linked in the media to things like Ivan Milat and the backpackers who were murdered by him.
Yes. A bit out of Milat's field of killing, though, that
area.
It
is. There is a small connection, though, which hopefully I'll cover.
Oh, interesting.
The other thing is that it had a bit of the Chamberlain about it because Peter Falconio's girlfriend who survived, Joanne Lees, she was also British. And she was very beautiful, and so it had that connection to the Chamberlain case because it was in the Northern Territory. There was the wild Australian sort of outback feel to it, plus this beautiful young woman, very similar to what had occurred with Lindy Chamberlain, and a very similar reaction to them by the media in terms of. They really did treat Joan Lees very badly for a couple of years there, and I'll probably talk about that a bit.
Because they thought she was involved?
She was accused of being involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that is similar.
It is, it's true, yeah. But I got into this. I do want to give a shout out to author Sue Williams. So what I do when I get these older cases, I try and find a book and read it and then go and read the judgments in the appeal courts because books will often give you background stuff which you don't get in the appeal judgments because they're only about the law and the facts of the case. And I thought I started her book, I was a bit like, it's a bit run-of-the-mill, but it really dragged me in. I thought it set up the relationship between Peter and Joanne Lees very well. And then The Darkness is the name. It's quite an interesting name. Then The Darkness. Usually, Lizzie, I hold up the book for those watching on YouTube.
Yes, you do.
I know. And I don't have this one to hold up because I did it on Talking Book and then thought I really need to deep dive and I then bought it.
Right.
And it hasn't arrived. And, that is a bit of a downer for me. It's been 2 weeks now.
To the library?
Oh, do you know what? It was published in 2011. I just didn't feel maybe I'm not a bit.
I am at the library every second week.
I should have done that.
I'm not allowed to buy any more books, David said.
Okay. So it's not in cold blood. So we did the Clutter family murders, and that was the Truman Capote non-fiction book in cold blood, which is so brilliantly written. It's not as good as that. in terms of
Okay.
the way it's written. But it is
But
very
you're
compelling.
recommending it.
I would recommend it.
Yeah,
It is
okay.
compelling.
All right.
Because I went into this case very much thinking, look, Bradley Murdoch is innocent, wrongly convicted. I do still think there's some question marks over the conviction, but I didn't have a lot of sympathy for Joanne Lees, but I have a lot of sympathy for her after reading the book.
Ah, it must be good to have swayed your opinion.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not completely hard-hearted, is it?
Well, you are a defence counsellor through and through.
That's right. All right, so Peter Falconio and his girlfriend Joanne Lees, they'd been dating for a couple of years. They decided they were getting serious. They were living together in, I think they're in Brighton, coastal city in the UK, and they decided that they were going to get married. But before they did that, they wanted to have a holiday, working holiday or backpacking holiday for a couple of years around the world. And they particularly wanted to go to Australia. So Joanne worked for Thomas Cook, which is a travel agency. Yeah, so she had lots of inside knowledge about where to go and what to do. And they'd been planning this trip for a long time, and it was to take place as soon as Peter had finished his studies, his university studies.
Right.
So he graduates with, it's like a degree in construction management, I think we'd call it. They go to, I think they're in Asia first, and then they arrive in Australia and Sydney on the 25th of June in 2001. And their plan is to sort of live and work in Sydney for a while, make some money, buy a car, drive around the country.
Yep.
Which is a very classic thing to do for backpackers coming to Australia. So that's what they do. Joanne works at one of my favourite bookstores ever, Dymocks, in I think it's in George Street in the city in Sydney.
Wow. Yeah,
very big Dymocks, 2-story place. My 14-year-old daughter loves it. She could spend all day in there.
Yeah.
So Joanne worked there. Peter, I think he was just doing some bar jobs or something. And they saved up money and they bought an orange VW combi van.
Oh, classic.
It is a classic.
Yes.
But can I say, if I'm driving around Australia, I'm not getting a combi. I'm absolutely getting a Japanese car.
Oh.
Yeah, totally unreliable. And old. Like, it's an old car.
No, but look at all the space. You could have a little bed in the back.
Get that in a Toyota Tarago.
Oh, no, that's a van.
Honestly, Toyota Hiace.
No.
Jeepers.
Combi's got character.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, much more character than a Toyota car, but not likely to break down.
Okay.
And not that this car does break down.
I was going to say, is that?
No, but, we'll see what happens. Maybe if they were in a Japanese car, they wouldn't have stopped. We'll see.
All right.
So they eventually decide to leave Sydney and they head off they go to Adelaide first. Okay. I don't know if we've got any Adelaide listeners, but I'm just going to say it's not a city that I've ever had much fun in.
Oh, I've been to Adelaide a couple of times, actually with Moot.
Oh, Moot teams.
Moot teams.
Yeah, law students.
And I've always loved it.
Have you?
Best cupcakes I've ever had were from Adelaide.
Wow, that's a big call.
Oh, amazing. They were amazing. And they were vegan.
Vegan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I would not have picked that.
Well, it was the animal law Moot.
Oh,
so,
of course.
Yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong, quite pretty. Parts of the city, very pretty, and well laid out.
Yes, very well laid out.
And has the River Torrens, which for all property lawyers is, close to their hearts, the Torrens title system. But really, is there a lot to do there? I don't know. Anyway, Joanne and Peter spent not a long time there, a couple of days, and then they decided to head off. And so they were going directly north from there to Alice Springs and then to the Northern Territory.
Right.
And for those who are not familiar with the map of Australia, that is right through the dead centre, and there really isn't much there. And so you're doing long stretches of driving through pretty arid country, and you're basically just going straight north.
And is this the road where there's no speed limit?
I think that's right, no speed limit.
Yes.
Doesn't help you in a VW combi.
No.
I think they're doing 80 Ks downhill,
All right.
with the wind behind them.
Taking in the scenery.
They are, yes, they're certainly taking their time. So they stop really at the only major town on that whole massive stretch is Alice Springs.
Oh.
And so they pull in on the 11th of July on 14 July. No, they arrive 11 July 2001. They arrive in Alice Springs. They spend 3 days there. They end up leaving on the 14th of July.
Okay.
And they park the combi in the caravan park. and then they enjoy the sights of Alice Springs, including they extend their stay so they can stay for the Camel Cup.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it does sound like fun.
Yeah.
So they race camels.
That would be worth staying for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the book said it was the only camel race in the world or something. Anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
well, we love a good race in Australia.
and it's a huge event in Alice Springs, and everyone's there.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Certainly, Bradley Murdoch admitted that he was there as well.
Right.
He didn't ever say he ever met Peter or Joanne, but he and Joanne Lees never identified that she met him there. But they were certainly in the town of Alice Springs at the same time.
Okay.
So then what happens is they actually decide to leave that afternoon. So the Camel Cup goes all day. They decide to leave at sort of 4 p.m, and they're driving about 350 k's to another campsite, which is near a lovely natural formation, and there's so many of them in that part of the world.
Yes.
But their aim is to drive all the way to Darwin, which is like more than 1,000 kilometres away.
Okay.
One of the complaints later on is that the British media, who obviously pick this up and write a lot about it, don't understand the distances they're dealing with.
Right.
Because there's complaints about the police and why didn't they do more and why didn't they set up more roadblocks. But you're dealing with, hundreds of kilometres of road.
Yes.
That have to be watched and there's not a lot of places to stay and there's no towns around.
Yeah, very remote.
Very, very remote.
Yes.
So they leave about 4 and they're going to just drive all night. Peter's driving.
Wasn't it just 350 k's?
Well, yeah, so when I say all night, they're only going 80 k's an hour.
Oh, okay.
So maybe not all night, but a good portion of the night.
All right.
So they're not expecting.
4 hours or
yeah.
so. Yeah.
So they're not really expecting to get in much before midnight.
Okay.
They stop at a place called Tea Tree to watch the sunset. Sounds
Lovely.
very romantic,
Yes.
and they smoke a joint together.
Oh.
And one of the things that the book and then The Darkness does really well is it sets up and describes their relationship. Having done a backpacking holiday and having had that time before you sort of really jump into your professional life where you're just kicking around
Busy.
and traveling and
Before you get busy.
Yeah, before you get busy. Did you do any of that kind of travel?
No, I didn't.
No.
Well, I've done a lot of camping.
Yeah.
But I didn't take like a gap year or
Yeah.
anything.
So it probably I really related to that aspect of it, and the fact that they're there, this lovely young couple,
Yes.
just at sort of the beginning of their lives together and having this fantastic adventure.
Mm.
So they're at Tea Tree watching the sunset, smoking a joint. They get back in the car. They keep driving. They pass through. I don't think it's even called a town, Barrow Creek, and so this is often called the Barrow Creek murder. Barrow Creek's not really a town; it's a service station.
Right.
That's really it. Big service station with accommodation, that kind of stuff. They pass. I don't think they stop there, but obviously it becomes central later on. They keep going. They're just driving along the highway, long, straight, flat highway.
Yeah.
Peter's driving. Now, as they're driving, it's not every now and again a car will come up behind them, you see, and then because they're going slowly, they overtake. So a car comes up behind them, sort of sits behind them for a little while. They're waiting for the car to overtake. The car then pulls out into the other lane, drives up beside them, but doesn't overtake them.
Mm.
And the man who's driving, he signals, pointing towards the back of their cars. There's something at the back of their car, and he tells them they should stop.
Oh.
Now, Joanne had said not to stop, and there was an occasion an hour or so earlier where they'd seen a small fire on the side of the road, and Peter had said, "Oh, let's stop and put that fire out." And Joanne said, "No, it looks really odd and could be a trap." And
She sounds very wise.
yeah, so she was obviously a bit more vigilant than Peter was. Anyway, she said to him, "Don't stop, just keep driving." Anyway, Peter said, "No, we'll stop, see what this is." So they pull the combi over by the side of the road, and the utility that's signalled, it pulls over as well. Peter gets out, talks to the driver of the utility, and it's something about sparks coming out of the
exhaust.
Again, if you're in a Toyota, would you be believing that there's sparks coming out? Anyway, so they go to the back of the car to look at this, but obviously they need the engine running. So Peter says to Joanne, "Can you hop in the driver's seat?
Oh, no.
And can you rev the engine?" Joanne hops in the driver's seat, And the last she sees of Peter, I think he comes up to her and says, can you sit here and rev the engine? Then he walks to the back of the car. She can hear some brief conversation. She starts revving the engine, and then she hears what she thought was a backfire. She thought the car had backfired. And I don't know if you've heard gunshots, but they can sound very much like a backfire.
Well, that's a classic
Yeah.
thing that they say in movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
Mm.
So she then stops, revving the car, wondering what's happened. And the next thing she knows, this guy is standing at the driver's door right next to her. He's opened the door, he's standing there, and he's got a gun.
No.
Yes. And he says to her, turn off the car. Now, she's immediately, completely understandably, so freaked out, super scared. So scared her hand's shaking, she can't turn off the car.
Oh, the poor thing.
Oh, I know. So this guy, turns the car off, then forces her out of the car, says, get out of the car. She gets out. He then says, get on the ground and, lie face down, put your hands behind your back. So she's sort of saying, Peter, help me, Peter. Where's Pete? Where is he? Anyway, this guy doesn't respond, but he forces her to the ground and says, put your hands behind the back. Eventually she does. And then he sort of sits on her and then starts to put some kind of handcuffs on her.
Right.
Anyway, she decides at that point, very sensibly, I might add, because this probably saves a life, that she's going to fight. She's going to have to do what she can to not comply with what this guy's asking. So she starts kicking her legs. Oh, sorry, he gets the handcuffs on her hands and then he starts trying to put them on her legs. So she starts kicking her legs. He's saying to her, stay still, and he's, yelling at her, stay still. She doesn't. He then punches her in the side of the head, stuns her.
So presumably he put the gun down to do the handcuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, he doesn't then continue to put the
leg
shackles on, whatever they were. We find out later they're cable ties, sort of zip ties.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get those on her feet, which, again, is probably due to her fighting so hard. Even though now she's stunned, he sort of gives up on that and he gets her up. And then he tries to put masking tape or gaffer tape over her mouth. So again, she struggles. She throws her head around so he can't sort of get the tape on her mouth. In the end, he doesn't really get the tape on her mouth either. He gets it on her. He sort of gets it on her hair.
Okay.
Sort of misses her mouth. He then gives up on that as well, and then forces her into the front seat of the car. Says, get in the front seat of his car.
Right.
So she
hasn't seen where Peter is.
She never sees Peter again. Hasn't heard, can't hear any noise.
Not even a glimpse.
Not a glimpse.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. Not a body on the ground, nothing.
What?
Yeah. It's weird.
And could she see in the back of the car?
So it's a utility, and so the back of the car is covered by green canvas. So it's got a green canvas.
The tonneau cover.
No, it's not a tonneau cover. It's got a frame on it, so it's like you could sleep in the back like a little.
Oh, okay. Like a little camp.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in fact, when she gets put in there, it's got a mattress in the back as well.
But Peter's not in there.
Peter's not in there.
That is bizarre.
So he forces her into the car, get in the car. So she's got her hands behind her back manacled or zip tied. And she is put in the car. Then she looks across the driver's seat and there's a dog sitting there. And it's just sitting in the driver's seat, not doing anything.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a bit weird.
Our dog used to move straight to the driver's seat if it was vacant.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think having a dog in the front of the car is if you're travelling by yourself with a dog.
Yeah, you have your mate.
Yeah, stick it in the front of the car. What I found strange is that there's all this commotion going on between two human beings and the dog just sits and does nothing.
There. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, because I've had dogs and they just go berserk.
They'd be barking.
Yeah, barking and running and trying to bite people or excited or something.
I thought I knew this case, but I did not.
This guy then... Oh, sorry, that's right. He took her to the side of the car. He then put a hood on her. He grabs it, reaches in the back of his utility, pulls out a bag, sugar bag or something, puts it on her head. Again, she shakes her head. Eventually, the hood comes off. So she's sitting in the front seat of the car, hood's off, and there's a dog there. This guy, he goes off and does something, a couple of minutes or a minute or so. He then comes back. She says he hopped into the driver's seat and pushed her from the cabin into the tray area of the utility.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly. You know,
That's not possible.
I've been in lots of utilities, and they
Yeah.
don't have an access way from the
Unless
cabin.
he specially modified it.
Yes. And as it turned out, Bradley Murdoch was a mechanic and did lots of special modifications to his car.
Was that a feature of his
Was
car,
not.
though?
Well, sorry. It was hard to run to earth because I didn't. I mean, besides reading the book, I read the judgment, and it doesn't really feature in the judgment.
Right.
By the time of the trial, which is, bear in mind, is a couple of years later, Joanne says that, maybe he got her out of the car and pushed her in through the side of the, from the.
She just had a blow to the head as
Yeah.
well.
I mean,
Very disoriented.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, somehow she finds herself in the back of this tray and on a mattress, and the guy goes off, and she can't hear him, she can't hear what's going on, but she can see a little crack of light out the back of the tray, so she knows that she could that's a potential area to escape. So it's exactly what she does. She just goes straight to the back of that. Her hands are tied, but she sort of falls out the back of the utility onto the ground, and then she just runs into the bush.
Oh my gosh, such courage.
Oh, unbelievable courage. I don't know if you've ever run through the bush at night, but it's not something I would ever recommend.
No, I don't think I've run through the bush, but, going for nature calls when you're out camping.
Yeah.
It's terrifying enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the difficulty with running through the bush at night is you can't see anything, and it's often covered in sticks and rocks. And
little tufts of spiky grass.
Yeah. So she runs, falls, gets up, runs, falls, gets up. She runs for what she thinks is a long way, and she thinks she must be a long way from the car. As it turns out, she was 80 metres from the car.
Oh, the poor thing.
She hides under a sort of a bush. Now, she says that the bloke eventually finds out that she's not in the back. He looks in the back, she's not there, swears, starts looking around. He doesn't seem to get a torch. And he doesn't get his dog out to search for her. He walks into the bush a little way, and she says he actually walked really close to where she was. And she's there, and she's just petrified and just not moving and not saying anything. Anyway, he then goes back and gets in his car and drives off. Now, luckily, she stayed where she was. She just stayed exactly where she was, because he then comes back on foot about 5-10 minutes later.
Oh, he tricked her.
Well, no, he was trying to move the V'd-up combi.
Ah.
So as it turns out, there was a side road a little way further on, and he'd parked his car in the side road, or this is what they assume. He then comes back on foot, gets into the combi, and then drives off in the combi.
So no, we never found the body, but do we think it was in the combi at that point?
Not in the combi. Because they find the combi and they test it, and there's
no evidence.
No. What evidence there is a pool of what they eventually work out is blood, which is at the area at the back of where the combi was.
Okay.
It's covered up. So one of the things this guy does is he kicks gravel and stuff all over it.
Right.
So you've got the road, which is obviously bitumen, and then you've got the verge of the road, which is, dirt.
Yep.
And then you've got the bush. So they were on the dirt part of the road, and he kicks the dirt all over it, so you sort of covered it up. And I mean, to the extent that when people first arrive, they don't immediately think that it's blood, or they don't immediately
So he did a good job.
Reasonable job.
Mm.
So he drives off in the combi. He parks it in this little side road, sort of a little way up from where they are, and then leaves it, then gets in his car and drives back. All the time, Joan Lees is just here under the bush.
Just stayed still.
Absolutely still. Comes back. Again, doesn't turn the car with the headlights onto the bush.
Oh, I would have thought the dog would have been helpful.
Get the dog out.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, luckily,
I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
He sort of has another sort of half-hearted search, but a car comes down the highway, going in the opposite direction, so heading south. And so he then, it's a long straight road, so you can hear and see a car a long way off before they can see you.
Yes.
So Joanne hears the car, this guy obviously hears his car, he gets in his car and he drives. Anyway, I don't think he comes back then. I think he just disappears.
Did she flag down the car?
No, she stayed where she was, because this guy was just there, and then he sort of drove off. So she doesn't flag down the car.
Because I imagine it wouldn't be regular traffic.
No. I think that's the only car besides the road train which goes past that goes past. So she stays absolutely still where she is. He drives off. She doesn't, I mean, there's that car goes past. She doesn't want to flag down a car in case it's him coming back.
Yes.
So she stays, she actually gets up, runs across the road to the other side of the road, hides in the bush on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
So she's in the long grass on the other side of the road, and she thinks, I'll wait for a road train because that's clearly not him.
Can't be him.
And for those not from Australia, a road train is a semi-trailer, which they're massive. They tend to carry 2 trailers or sometimes 3 trailers.
Yes.
They're incredibly long, and they run up and down these highways. And they generally have huge lights to, shine a long way ahead because they have their ability to stop and maneuver is pretty bad.
Yes.
So they like to have be able to see what's happening. Anyway, so she is then lying in this grass for hours. So they estimate that the attack occurs about 8 o'clock at night. And it's after 12 when a bloke and his mate, driving this road train. So there's the driver, and then the second driver is having a sleep in the cab. Anyway, he's just driving down the highway on this long, straight road. And out of the darkness, there's this girl holding her hands up with her hands bound, waving around. So I should say this because this does form a big feature later on. So she's tied with her hands behind her back with these zip ties. Now, the zip ties were, I think there was one around each hand, and then they were joined with either
together.
Yeah, either with another zip tie or some rope or something. But they weren't, she didn't have her hands close together. They were actually a little way apart, which means that she could, which is what she does,
step through them?
Yes. Yeah. She lies on her back, I think, and somehow steps through them. So she's got her hands bound still, but it's at the front. Yeah. I should say while she's lying there after he's driven off, she tries to bite through them. Can't do that. She gets her lip balm out. She puts lip balm on her wrist, tries to slip them off. She can't do that either.
The poor thing. I can't. It is your worst nightmare, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is your worst nightmare, yeah. I mean, for anybody who's been in the Australian bush, it is dark. It is absolutely pitch dark.
Yeah, dark like no other dark.
Yeah, it's no ambient light, like you get in the cities or towns. Anyway, so she sees this road train, runs out, waves it down. She tries to stand really close to the road. I think initially she's actually sort of on the road, and then as it comes, she sort of steps off the road. But she's so close that the driver thinks he might have hit her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he stops. This is how big these things are. It takes him 1 kilometre to stop. So
good on him for stopping.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, not something you would expect to see. A pretty young woman with her hands bound in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
I know, but so you would be thinking, is this a setup?
Yeah.
That would be one thought.
I suppose that's right.
Like, so bizarre.
Oh, very bizarre.
And normally I would say, don't hitchhike in a truck.
Yeah.
But here she is,
waving
safety.
Yeah. The other driver says, what's going on? And he says, oh, nothing, don't worry about it. Anyway, he gets out. He walks back. He's actually expecting to find the body of the girl who jumped out because he thinks he might have hit her.
Right.
So he's looking under his massive truck.
Oh, the poor driver.
Anyway, he gave up truck driving after this. This was so horrific.
Did he?
For him. Yeah. Anyway, he hears this girl calling out. And he looks and she's running down the road towards him. Anyway, she comes running up. Understandably, she is distraught.
Yes.
And she's talking about Pete and where's Pete. And anyway, he sees that she's got these manacled hands. He wakes up his mate. They cut the manacles off. They try and calm her down. They see that she's got like sticky tape in her hair, this gaffer tape in her hair. They see that she's got cuts and, over her knees and her legs from running through the bush and falling over. And anyway, so they eventually calm her down. She says, we've got to find Pete. So they unhook the trailer of the semi and they just take the prime mover at the front and they drive it back up the highway and they look around. Now, I think they see the pile of gravel where the blood is, but they don't identify it as...
Well, it's still nighttime, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still nighttime, yeah. And they shine the big lights of the...
Headlights.
Yeah. So they can sort of see a bit better. And they walk up and down. Anyway, somehow in the process of doing this, it hadn't ever come out that the bloke who had abducted Joanne had a gun. So I think at some point during the search, she talks about the fact that he had a gun, and they're both like, why are we looking for a bloke with a gun? Let's get out of here.
Yes.
So they all get back in the prime mover, go back, grab the, pick up the many trailers, drive to Barrow Creek, this big roadhouse service station.
Where they had come from.
They were travelling.
No, sorry, where Peter and Joanne had come from.
Yeah, when Peter and Joanne had come from. So they, I can't recall whether they'd stopped at Barrow Creek, but they'd driven through it. So yeah. Anyway, so the truck pulls over, goes in. It's now, by this time, it's 1 a.m. Now, luckily, in some respects, there was a party going on. The guy who owned the service station and the accommodation, and it was his birthday or something. And so they were having a party. So 1 a.m., there's a whole lot of people awake. So the truck driver goes inside, tells them what's happened, and they can't believe it. They're like, this is just the maddest thing I've ever heard.
Wild, yeah.
Joanne is so traumatised she won't get out of the prime mover. She's sitting in the cab of the truck.
And of course there'd be no police station or anything.
No police station nearby. They do call the police, and I think the police do turn up within a couple of hours.
Okay.
So that's good. They get this, the owner of the petrol station's wife. I think she'd gone to bed by that stage. They wake her up and she comes and she coaxes Joanne out, and they talk. And the things that Joanne says at that point do become relevant later at the trial, because she obviously gives a description of what happened. But the biggest thing about that for the trial is her description of the dog. So at one point they say, would you like to clean yourself up? Let's take you to the, shower block or whatever. And so one of the younger waitresses or something who lives there takes her out to the shower block and takes along her cattle dog puppy.
Right.
It's sort of not a tiny puppy, but it's not full grown yet. And Joanne sees it and says, oh, that's the same as the dog that was in the cab that I was, in the truck when I was abducted. She identifies it as a cattle dog. Now, later on, that becomes relevant because of the dog that Bradley Murdoch owned.
Was what?
Well, it was a Dalmatian cattle dog cross.
Uh-huh.
And so there were differences between the dog that she identifies and the dog that he owns.
But similarities as well?
But some similarities as well, in that it's partially the same breed.
Yeah.
So police come, and obviously then it becomes public knowledge, and they do things like set up roadblocks and, start investigating. And
the next day, obviously.
Yeah, the roadblocks take a little while, one, because of the massive distances. You've either got to send police up from Alice Springs or down from Darwin. I think Alice Springs is closer to this. I think Alice Springs is the one that really... it's coordinated out of there, but you're sending people long distances.
Yes.
And obviously when you're getting roadblocks on these country roads, the police have got to be able to stay somewhere.
Well, and where do you choose to put the roadblock?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it's one road.
Yeah.
Well, there are actually these side roads, which, and that becomes an issue about, Bradley Murdoch knew a whole lot of these roads. So
was he a Northern Territory native?
He wasn't a Northern Territory native. He was a West Australian.
Okay. But
he was living in Broome at the time. So for those not familiar with the map of Australia, Broome is in the north of Western Australia. It's probably the next major town. If you're in Darwin and you follow the coastline to the west, it is the next major town you come to. Having said that, it's a long way away from Darwin.
Right.
As all distances are in that
area
around Australia, yes. And it's a long way away from Alice Springs too.
Okay.
But
is he a truck driver or anything?
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine, because we do need to talk about who is Bradley Murdoch, how does he fit in. So what we'll pause it at that point for Joanne Lee. So she's at the truck stop and the police are come, or the police are starting to investigate.
So she's rescued and scared. In shock.
Yes, gives her story. They take her to Alice Springs and they put her up in Alice Springs.
Okay.
So Bradley Murdoch. So he is he's a drug runner.
Oh my God.
Yeah. One of the things that I think doesn't help his case is that he's not a particularly sympathetic character. So I did a miscarriage of justice case with Graham Stafford, and he is the nicest, gentlest guy, zero criminal history. That's not Bradley Murdoch.
Right.
He does have a criminal history, not a huge one, although he did have actually it wasn't an attempted murder, which I don't know how it wasn't, but he had been convicted of firing his rifle in a public place or something, Yeah, he sort of took a few pot shots at people when they were all out around a bonfire one night.
Oh, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly a bit of pretty antisocial behaviour. To the extent that people are literally around the bonfire diving, around.
For cover.
Yeah, and his shots are going off. One of the shots came very close to killing somebody.
Wow. He
So
was lucky then.
He
with
was
that
very
charge.
lucky. Yeah. And he'd had he'd always been a bit of a troubled youth, he's a bit of a fighter at school. Very good sportsman. Couple of things about him which don't fit. He's very tall. And if you see any photos of him, you cannot, I reckon he's 6'4", 6'5", something like that. He's a very tall guy.
What do you mean doesn't fit with Joanne's description?
Joanne's description, some of it fits, some of it doesn't.
Okay.
And one of the things it doesn't is, so the guy, she's sitting in the combi. The guy stands next to the combi. So she sees him at a couple of points. That point, she can turn to her right. She sees this guy standing there. And her initial description is that he is short.
Oh.
And one of the things that I find people don't, judging height can be difficult, and people often judge height of others based on their own height.
Yes.
So, if you're 6 foot and you say someone's tall, they're
tall.
over 6 foot. Yeah.
Yes.
So Joanne Lees is not tall, but she doesn't describe this guy as tall. She describes him as short. And I don't know if you could look at Bradley Murdoch, even for, a couple of seconds, and say he's not tall, because he is tall.
Yeah, it was nighttime.
Sure.
And perception could change, mate. Anyway.
So, that I think is the only occasion she gets to see the perpetrator standing up, because the next time she sees him close up, he sits in the cab next to her, I think, when he tries to bundle her in the back of the ute.
All right.
So he's sitting at that point.
So was that a pivotal part of the defence?
Well, the whole case is an identification case, because Bradley Murdoch said, "It wasn't me, I wasn't there." So it's not a case where he's sort of saying, "Oh, I didn't mean to do it," or something. Yes, I was there. He just says, "Not me, wasn't there." So the entire case is about, is the man that, abducts Joanne Lees and kills Peter Falconio, is that Bradley Murdoch?
So was there no, DNA on the...
There is DNA.
On the
okay?
zip ties? Oh,
On
sorry.
the frickin' zip ties. There is DNA on the zip ties. Don't even start with the DNA on the zip ties.
Okay.
But yes, there is DNA.
Sorry, I'll let you tell
We'll
it.
get to it, because that was what I was like. Was there DNA?
Yeah.
Because nowadays you're like, oh, there's DNA. Shot
Touch DNA, transfers at the drop of a hat.
Like, close the book. We've got this guy on toast.
Yes.
They do get DNA. I'm a bit skeptical of it. When I say a bit skeptical, let's say a lot skeptical of it.
Did it match Murdoch?
It was an exact match, quote unquote.
Why do you do it like
at
that?
16? Oh, well. We've had the DNA inquiry in Queensland. I think, we've had the case of Farajama. I think nowadays, none of this had occurred back in 2003 when they're getting these exact matches. DNA was still in its infancy.
Yes.
And there's stuff that happens in that case which would definitely not happen now. That it's allowed into evidence which just would not be allowed in now.
Okay.
But I am always skeptical, particularly whenever a scientist says something is exactly a match. That's a huge red flag for me, because scientists don't often say that.
That's right.
So
if they do say it, why do you it's not like they say it every time.
No, because I think that genuine scientists always allow for the fact that there is doubt.
That is very disparaging of a whole lot of scientists.
Sure, I have very little time for scientists. I have found them to be, in terms of their evidence in court, a pretty useless bunch. I've cross-examined a few of them, and I'm not impressed by them.
Oh, that's a big call.
Okay, we can go through lots of cases where their evidence is just terrible.
But we could also go through lots where it's good.
Well, or are they just miscarriage of justice that haven't been found out yet?
Joe.
So anyway, they do get DNA, which I wasn't going to. I'll talk about that later.
It was my immediate thought.
Okay, but I'll tell you the evidence. It's ID evidence. So ID evidence, Joanne. ID of the dog. Identification of the dog, identification of the car, and there's real question marks over all of these, as far as I'm concerned. DNA evidence, and then opportunity evidence, and the idea of that Bradley Murdoch was the evidence that he was in the area at the time. Okay, so that's really the evidence that convicts him.
Okay,
I think there are question marks over all of those pieces of evidence, and we'll go through why. Okay, but anyway, Bradley Murdoch bit of a trouble kid, but a savant in terms of mechanical stuff. His father was an incredibly good mechanic, apparently,
Right.
sort of fix anything. And Bradley Murdoch grows up, I assume, fixing stuff with his dad and
Yep.
seeing his dad fixing stuff. And so is this, fantastic at mechanics
Okay.
and very interested in his car and all that kind of stuff. So he sort of does, a number of jobs. He gets married quite young. I think he's sort of quite handsome, tall, and confident.
How old was he at this time?
So he marries at about, I think he's 25. I think the wife he marries is 22. He doesn't take to marriage.
Oh,
It's not for him.
not for him.
He takes a job as a long haul truck driver within a couple of years. I think that sort of says something about your marriage, doesn't it? When your husband walks in and says, "I've just got a job as a long haul truck driver, darling."
Well, it might, but not always.
Not always.
Not always.
No, that's right.
Did he have women in other cities?
He had a number of girlfriends. I didn't do the timeline about whether he had them all at the same time
Right.
but
So at the time in 2001, how old was he?
so in 2001, you need to see me. So he is, I think, in his 40s, late 40s.
Okay. So he'd been married for a long time.
That marriage I'm not sure if they were officially divorced, but when he
Right.
took the job as the long haul truck driver, that
Fizzled out.
pretty much was the end of it.
Okay. Did he have children?
He had a couple of kids.
Okay.
So he sort of moves around and he lives in different places. So he'd been a long haul truck driver, and so he'd known a lot of these roads and he'd done a lot of long haul drives,
Okay.
and he quite enjoyed the driving.
Okay.
He was a mechanic. He was often working on cars, his car, other people's cars. He had bits of cars around that he'd work on.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's driving a Toyota Land Cruiser.
Trayback.
Yeah, Toyota should probably sponsor this episode, shouldn't they?
Yes.
So a Toyota Land Cruiser utility, Trayback, white. And again, are there any other colour in Toyota?
Beige.
Oh, that's right. There is beige. Okay, so his is a white one.
Okay.
And with, exactly what the canopy was on his is a matter for debate at the time. Certainly he, I'll talk about that in a second, but he then falls into running drugs.
Just falls into it.
Yeah, well, he's got the skill set in that he's a long haul truck driver. Well, he knows all the roads. He likes long haul driving. He has a Toyota Land Cruiser Ute with extra fuel tanks.
Okay, but I don't know how that makes him suitable to be a drug runner, because that was what I learnt to drive in, because that was
Did you?
David's car.
Was it beige or white?
Well, he had a beige one first and then a white one.
Right, okay.
And so I don't like the association between drug running and that style of car.
Okay. No, and let's make it plain that we are not saying that people who run drugs all drive those cars.
Good.
But they're a very common car.
Oh, yes. And I think if anyone's not familiar with utes, it's a high, big, cab, and the tray is higher than a traditional ute,
Yes. Excellent for sort of this kind of driving because they're built like tanks, big, heavy cars, great off-road.
Really good.
Yeah. It is sort of your and big engine, so fine on the highways to just purr along at, 120
And worth
k's.
a fortune now.
Yeah. Very expensive cars. So he gets into this drug running. He is living in Broome at this stage, and he was living with a bloke called Heppy. Anyway, the guy's name's Heppy.
Did he have hep?
I don't think he got the name because he had hepatitis. It's a traditional name. I knew a guy called Heppy. I think he was from the South Pacific somewhere.
Hopefully not the same fellow.
No, not the same. Possibly. I'm just thinking now. The timeline will work. I knew this guy back in the early 90s. Anyway, so Heppy's also a drug runner. So they're both running drugs and they're both living in the house together, working for the same people.
Are we talking hard drugs?
No, marijuana, I think mostly.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think they were particularly picky.
No.
But and I didn't really get that. The book doesn't really talk much about the
Type of drug.
Yeah, and the sort of economics behind the business, where they were taking it from. He seemed to go between Broome, Darwin, Adelaide, and Alice Springs.
Right.
That sort of triangle.
Okay.
Because later on he ends up taking a house down in South Australia as well.
Right.
Anyway, so he's doing these drug runs. He is out doing a drug run in July of 2001 when this occurs. And he admitted to having been in Alice Springs for the Camel Cup in July. So in that sense, he'd admitted to being within a couple of hundred Ks of...
How did they even narrow down to him?
Yes, well, that's the real trick, isn't it? He doesn't get arrested until much later. So the trial, it's 3 years, I think, between that and when I'm just trying to think, where's the ID? Within 12 months, I think they've got him. Sorry, I was totally wrong there. They arrest him within 12 months, but they arrest him based on tip-off from Heppy.
Oh, really?
Sorry, having said that, he is a person of interest. So they have, 30 people of interest or something. And one of them is Bradley Murdoch. And they do interview him.
How did they figure out persons of interest?
Yeah, I suppose Crime Stoppers is what they usually do. I don't know. I think they also went through registers of who owned, white Toyota Land Cruiser utilities.
Oh, okay. Yes, they had that description. So she described the car correctly.
Well,
apart from the interior
when you say
passage.
correctly, that's assuming that it's Bradley Murdoch who does it. She describes the car as a utility.
Did she say Toyota, like a Land Cruiser? Because white utes, there's bazillions of them out there.
Yeah, that is true. This is 23 years ago. I mean, the Toyota Land Cruiser has quite a distinctive look, and as you say, it sits quite high. Yeah. It looks like quite a big car.
Okay.
You're not mistaking it, I don't think, for a Hilux or a Mitsubishi Triton or...
yeah, I don't know. Some people might. Anyway, but so that's obviously how they narrowed.
Well, they also had the truck stop video.
Oh, okay.
So they get a video later on from a truck stop within 100 or so Ks of the area. And the person who comes into the truck stop bears some resemblance to Bradley Murdoch. You can't see the guy's face because he has a cap on,
right,
and it's a security camera filmed from above. But you can see the ute, and it is because I've got the cameras at the bowsers, and so it is a white ute with a green canvas cover.
At the right sort of time.
Oh, within, I think at 2:30 a.m. or something.
Right.
So very much within the right time.
Okay. Well, that makes more sense.
At trial, they run the trial that is Bradley Murdoch coming in there. Now, I've got some question marks over that as well. So there's just some things that don't entirely fit. Anyway, so they've got that as well. So they feel that person who was at the truck stop may well have been the murderer. I don't know. But they use that as evidence that it was Bradley Murdoch and he was in the area, and they use it as to help identify the car and stuff like that.
Okay.
So Bradley Murdoch's doing one of these drug runs. When he goes on the drug run, he tows a caravan. Well, in this occasion, he said he was towing a caravan, and he has his dog with him. And he took a while to get back. So he was on that highway.
Hold on. Did he have the caravan on the video footage?
Well, that's assuming. He says he's not the man at the truck stop.
But so did that?
No, that truck did not have the caravan.
Okay.
And he said he was towing a caravan the whole time, so it wasn't him.
Right.
The jury obviously didn't accept that. But he takes this side road, which apparently is a bit of local knowledge, off the main highway, and runs that. And I mean, I haven't looked at maps or anything, but I gather from the description, it's a side road which really runs straight from that main highway all the way to Broome.
Huh. Like a dirt road?
Yeah, it's a dirt road.
Yeah.
Runs for a very long way, and it's dirt. And Murdoch, he doesn't arrive back at Heppy. So he admits to being in Alice Springs for the Camel Cup. He doesn't arrive back at Heppy's for another week or something.
Oh, okay.
So it's much later. But he doesn't get picked up in any of the roadblocks.
Ah.
Now, the police's argument is that that's because he takes this side road because he's trying to avoid everybody. He says, I always took that road because it's the quickest way and it's quite a nice, road.
Was there any independent evidence he took that route?
Well, he admitted to taking that. Oh, well, sorry, he admitted to always taking that route.
But did anyone confirm that?
No, but I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, no one's who sees anybody.
Well, I know, I'm just saying he could say whatever he likes.
Sure. Anyway, he arrives back. Heppy says when he arrives back, he's very scattered. He's absolutely high on amphetamines. Everybody accepts that as a long-haul truck driver, he took lots of amphetamines, and that doing these long-haul drives as a drug runner, he took amphetamines. Long-term use of amphetamines apparently leads to significant paranoia.
Okay.
Heppy says when he arrives home, he's very paranoid. Shaves off his moustache and hair. Sorry, I should say, and this is the connection with Ivan Milat.
Moustache.
not just a moustache. Joanne Lees describes the man who abducts her as having a Mexican-style moustache.
Oh, really?
So coming down past the
twirling.
mouth. No, I don't
Oh.
think twirling.
Ah,
Came down past the mouth. But very much like Ivan Milat's
yes.
moustache. And interestingly, Ivan Milat wrote to the newspaper and said, the man who killed Peter Falconio is obviously the same as the man who killed all these backpackers because I'm innocent.
Oh, my God.
I know. So that's the connection.
Oh, he would have loved being able to say that.
But it reminded me of our Ivan Milat episode because you asked at that time, I wonder how popular the
Moustache
was. And
Yeah.
apparently, according to this book, and then The Darkness, it was very popular.
Wow. Okay, so he quickly shaved that off.
Arrives, shaves off shaves his moustache, shaves his head to, a buzz cut.
Really?
So often if you see photographs of Bradley Murdoch in in Google Images or whatever,
Yes.
he's got this buzz cut. So
That's very suspicious.
well, assuming that wasn't something that he did quite often, which
Well, did he?
yes, apparently he would, every sort of 4 or 5 months he would shave all his hair off and then he'd grow a beard and long hair and then he'd shave it all off again.
Oh,
Because he's paranoid about being picked up.
okay. You know what's disturbing me with this story?
What?
Peter and Joanne are driving stoned because they
Wow,
had a...
one joint.
Well, people always underestimate how much they've had to drink or. But this very long, unsupervised stretch of road, we've got meth, we've got
Yeah.
stoned, people leaving the Camel Cup at the end of the day when they've probably been drinking.
Yeah.
Very dangerous road.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to say we do not condone any kind of driving under the influence.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, so he admits that he was in the area, admits he gets back and then he immediately spends a month completely refiguring his car. So he pulls the tray off, he puts a new tray on, he puts all these,
He must have had a lot of money.
Well, I think he did a lot of the work himself.
I know, but that...
And he's a drug runner. He's got like bundles of cash.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to glorify running drugs, but I do think that they have cash lying around.
And then the consequences for being caught are catastrophic. So
Sure.
weigh that up, people.
Yeah.
So he's changing the whole ute.
Change the whole ute. But again, if that's the first time he'd ever done it, you'd be like, oh, that's a bit weird. But he was regularly working on his cars, changing this, changing that. And his argument was, well, I'm a drug runner. I'm always changing how I look and how the car looks because I don't want to be looked
like a pattern.
Yeah, and the same sort of thing. So
It's all very coincidental, though.
Well, is it though? Or are you just connecting unrelated facts?
Or connecting related facts.
Anyway, so he and Heppy so the police investigation, understandably, is tough. They find the blood, the pile of blood. They find the DNA. They find the combi just up the road, a kilometre away.
Sorry, they find the DNA on the zip ties.
Sorry, they find Peter Falconio's DNA.
Oh, in the blood.
They get the DNA off his brother in England and they match it and they say that blood is Peter Falconio's.
Did they... Oh, sorry, did you just say they found the van?
They found the combi.
Yeah.
Well, because when you fly over the area with a helicopter,
easy to
an
see.
orange combi sticks out. It's only a kilometre away.
Yes.
So they find the combi.
Okay.
They find it pretty quickly the next day.
Right.
And they see there's nothing. They do DNA tests all over it. They say there's some mixed DNA on the
steering wheel
and the gear stick.
But if that was a second-hand car that only had a month,
could
have had anyone's DNA in it.
Yeah. No, I suppose that's right.
Yeah.
So but all they really have to go on is Joanne's story, as that really is what becomes problematic because she, totally understandably, does not want to speak to the media and does not want to be asked questions and does not want to relive the whole.
But she's spoken to the police.
Absolutely spoken to the police,
yes.
But it becomes a media sensation and the world's media descends on Alice Springs.
Wow.
And they want a story and she is not giving them a story.
She didn't talk to anyone?
Didn't speak to the police, didn't speak to the media and hid from the media. So she would not even let them get photographs. Oh, it absolutely is fair. As it turns out, it's very unhelpful for her case.
Oh.
Well, because what happens when the media is sitting around and they've got nothing?
Sorry, media.
Well, probably that's right, make stuff up. They certainly get the little amount of information they have and they start connecting unrelated facts. So the other thing is the Northern Territory Police don't handle the media particularly well.
Did they talk to the media?
Yeah, they were giving media briefings, but they weren't giving too much away.
Okay.
They did things like reenactments. So they took Joanne back to the site and had her reenact it. I know.
Actually took Joanne.
Yeah, they didn't get her. I think they got her to watch a female officer playing her
Oh my
to
God.
comment. I know, it's just a
That is
isn't it?
traumatizing.
And they interviewed her in long interviews several times to get her to tell the same story over again.
Oh my goodness.
Which one must have been terribly traumatizing, but two is a really bad way to
get inconsistent statements.
Yeah, but also it can reinforce mistakes, because if you keep repeating it, you start to believe it. Or, if you sort of speculate on the first one, you think, oh, I think it was this. By the time you tell it the third time, it's definitely that.
I wonder if back in 2001 they provided her with like counselling and stuff.
I think she did get some counselling. They certainly dedicated one particular police officer to be her handler, who was, I think, part of her job was to help Joanne. And I mean, she's now stuck in a foreign country, as it turns out, for months.
Did any of her family come?
Well, so her father, she didn't have a relationship with her father. She had a close relationship with her mother, who'd remarried, and I think she had some step siblings, but her mother was too sick to come.
Oh, so she was really alone.
Yeah, she did have so she'd made some good friends in Sydney at Dimmicks, and they came up.
Okay.
And a couple of them were with her, and then after a month or so, she actually went back to Sydney and went back to working at Dimmicks.
Right.
But it was such a media sensation that they had to put her in the back room, because people would be coming in trying to get her autograph and get a photo and
get her autograph.
Yeah, she was this media sensation. Anyway, problem is the media start writing stuff about, is she really telling the truth? Was she involved? And
so that all came just from the media?
Yes, absolutely came from the media. The problem is there's not a lot of evidence except for what Joanne says.
But the police weren't suggesting?
No, absolutely not. The police at all times believed her.
Oh, that's insane.
It is. And there was one particular...
That the media did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was one particular journalist in Britain who was openly writing stuff about how she was involved in the murder. And
a British journalist who had not even come to Australia.
I don't think he came to Australia. Anyway.
So he was just all about selling.
Oh, well, he says he thought she did it.
Based on what?
Well, I suppose based on the fact they couldn't find the body, they didn't know. So if you don't have a body, as we've talked about on this show, you don't know how the person died. In fact, you don't even know that they're dead.
But she was in a bad way. Like, she was evidence herself of something.
One of the things that, I'll just tell this last story, and then we might have to save the rest for next week, because we haven't even started unpacking all the details.
All right.
But in Britain, about a year before this, a woman had called the police, and they'd come to a country road where a woman was there with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend had been stabbed to death. And the woman said, we were flagged down by this person, and then he attacked us, and he stabbed my boyfriend to death, and he drove off. And she was really upset, and she was crying, and she was very believable. And, she made pleas on the TV about help find our killer. Yeah. Turns out she was the killer.
Really?
Yeah, she had stopped on the country road, got out with her boyfriend, stabbed him to death, called the police.
See, that is why the media probably do that, because you hear a case like that. We've got the Baden Clay example where he was appealing to the media. Recently, there's been resurgence of the Sherry Papini case where
Oh, I don't know that one.
I'm sure it was Sherry Papini who was abducted, but she'd set the whole thing up herself, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, you can understand there's skepticism at times.
And particularly when the police aren't giving the media a lot to work with.
And the person involved
refuses to speak.
It's so unfair.
Won't even give photo opportunities. So...
which you can totally understand why, and then you look at the repercussions.
Yeah, yeah. So we might stop it there. So that's the police are sort of a year. Well,
sorry, let's just really quickly recap. They had their 30 persons of interest.
Yeah, they had interviewed Bradley Murdoch, but they effectively discounted him.
And then
Heppy.
Heppy. Okay.
So Murdoch has a falling out with Heppy. As drug runners do. I don't know. I'm not a drug runner. And I think he dobs Heppy in for some drug running or something.
Oh, tit for tat.
And so when the police turn up to Heppy's place, he said, have I got a story for you?
Wow.
Because he had seen the truck stop video because it had been put on the news. And he said,
he recognised Murdoch.
He says, that's Murdoch in the video. And he said that to Murdoch, and Murdoch said, yes, that was me. Murdoch said he never said that,
Of course.
and that it wasn't him. Yeah, so they had the opportunity in the sense that he was potentially in the area. He was certainly in Alice Springs. He knew these back roads, so he could have, got around the police roadblocks.
Yeah.
And they had evidence from Heppy, at least, that he was the man in the truck stop video who they were pretty convinced was the murderer.
Right.
So they then zone in on Bradley Murdoch, and yeah, they take DNA samples and blah blah blah.
All right, so you can take us through that.
So I'll take you through the trial and what I think are the problems with it.
Is it a spoiler if we ask where Murdoch is now?
Wow, should we give that away?
Okay.
That probably is a spoiler.
All right,
Where
well,
is Bradley Murdoch
we won't.
now?
All right, we'll wait for next week.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
All right,
Joe.
thanks, Lizzie.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, please rate and review or like and subscribe. It all helps Lizzie and I keep this podcast going. If you're interested in clips, you can look at them on Instagram and TikTok. Just search for Justice Matters Pod. See you next episode.